I first got interested in energy medicine actually when I was in my very early 20s. I joined this esoteric group who practiced hands-off healing. And people told me I was good at it, but I didn't have the self-confidence at that point actually to do anything with this sort of talent. I now believe that everybody's got it. There's nothing special. I think the people who do energy medicine, like Reiki, for instance, I believe they have the ability to do it anyway, but they need to be told they're a master Reiki, a Reiki master or something, so they feel confident enough that now they can overcome lack of self-belief and they can just do it. So one of my best energy results ever was about 7 years ago. I had this man come who had pain. He'd got brain fog and some eyesight issues. So at that point, I had 4 frequency devices made by a company called Spooky. And so I wired up all 4 to this guy. And an hour later, he's my happiest client in ages. His eyesight's fixed, his brain fog's gone, and his pain has left him. And I look over and I've forgotten to switch the machines on. So the power of the mind is extraordinary. But about 20 years ago, a little bit less, I got introduced to this medical doctor who explained to me that Nikola Tesla in the 1880s, 1890s had been developing 3 healing modalities, devices that would heal you. And he persuaded me to find one, and I tracked one down secondhand. It was sort of the type of unit, there are a couple of different types of units out there. One's used in hospitals and then one that people at home use. This was like a hospital type one. And I started to get incredible results with it. The very first person I tried it out on, they hadn't been able to drive because of a neck injury. 15 minutes later, neck injury gone. Second person I treat had been on pain medications for about 20 years on and off because he'd injured his back, crushed some vertebrae. And when I met him, he said the only reason he was with me was because of all the morphine and the painkillers he's taken. Normally, he wouldn't want to go out. Treated him, he came out of pain completely. And I mean, at this point, I knew nothing really about how the machine worked or anything much. The doctor had taught me the basics, but that was probably in 15 minutes. But it wasn't difficult. It only had one knob, which was like a more knob, like a volume knob. And so I started using that, quite a bit with clients. And then for years, I'd ignored the smaller versions, the type you might have at home, the type that dentists might be using, because you can get anesthesia. It's incredible for pain relief, particularly chronic pain. Anyway, so then I started tracking down and restoring the smaller, more practical versions. I've got one hospital version just to my right, which you could barely lift. It's heavyweight. And I've got one of them behind me, so you might be able to see. And for the last several years, along with some enthusiasts, because there are a few people in the world who realize these devices exist, and I work with them to track down the good ones and to restore them. The problem is that 3 of my restorers have now got so old they've retired, and they couldn't find anybody to replace them because it's just a different technology using Tesla coils rather than conventional transistors or whatever they might be using. And so the average electrician, if they look at Tesla coils, which are meant to be tuned to resonate with one another, they really don't know where to start. So restoring them is the biggest problem. Finding people actually know how to do it. But saying that, there are many, many practitioners now around the world who are using Tesla devices because of their various abilities. To give you a few examples, I've got a video out there where I get 34 people out of pain in a row in less than 5 minutes, just random people coming to me when after I'd done a talk. And acute pain, as one can understand, takes a bit of time to recover from, but chronic pain that the body just hasn't been able to overcome that can be easy as pumping energy in the form of electrons and photons, in the form of scalar energy, right into the body. So we get that sort of energy, electrons anyway, when we exercise, when we take an antioxidant like vitamin C or something. When we stand barefoot on damp grass, we're getting electrons from the surface of the planet, which is how life should be. We should be barefoot, in theory. So the Tesla device is an electron generator on one level, does various things. And as an electron generator, I'm guessing it's maybe 10,000 more times more powerful than any other way to get yourself well. So that's like a brief overview, but I should just add that you can use it on all sorts of parts of the body. I mean, I've got an electrode here, which is made for the eyes. You use it over closed eyelids. I had a lady, and again, there's a video online about this, who was in eye hospital for about 3 days. They'd tried their drops, they'd tried everything they could try, but this eye infection wasn't getting better, and it was inside the eye, nasty. And but after 3 days, she gave up. She came over to my house, borrowed a device, and used it for 15 seconds, 6 times that evening when she got home. Woke up in the middle of the night, did another session, and then in the morning, her eye was 80% better, and continued treatments with the device. And the doctors had said that if you don't accept our treatment, which was 6 months of antibiotics and 6 months of steroids, they told us she'd probably go blind. So anyway, it works on any part of the body, basically.
Okay, here we have a question from Norman. Is this about a specific device, always the same, or is it a variety of potential treatments stroke devices, please?
I'm awfully sorry. Just repeat the question, sorry.
So the question is this about a specific device? So is it always the same device that you're speaking about, or is it a variety of potential treatments and devices that you're speaking about, please?
Right. Well, it's the versions of the devices that I restore. Tesla, who was recognized in the 1880s as being the most fantastic scientist on the planet, he was the one who came up with AC electricity, which we all use, for example. He was the one who invented radio control. He patented all his electrical inventions, but gave these technologies away free. He didn't want to profit from health, you might say. So many companies took it up. So 1891 or 1893 was when he first showed them publicly, but 1891 he gave lectures teaching people how to build these machines. So many manufacturers started making them. So by 1910, for example, they were commonplace in every country in the world. They were in every major hospital. And bear in mind that electrotherapy has been around almost forever. Guy's Hospital in London, they opened their electrotherapy department in 1843. 1843. So this technology has been around way before Tesla refined it, you might say. In the hieroglyphs in one of the Egyptian sites, you can see what looks very much like Egyptians playing with light bulbs and power sources. It's quite interesting. But John Wesley, the Wesley chapels, he was playing with electricity 100 years before that, curing all sorts of ailments. One of the reasons he became famous, because he was fixing people with electricity. And there are many misconceptions about electricity. I mean, one of them is that high voltage will kill you. Well, these devices are running at 50,000 volts or something around that, but it's amps that kill you. It's the ampage that kills you. A car battery can be more dangerous than 240, which can be more dangerous. After about 5,000 volts or less, if you were to hold the positive and negative, instead of giving you muscular shocks, just feels lovely. It feels really nice, because the frequency that gives you shocks is like a slow frequency. Speed it up and it becomes smooth. And with the hospital devices, it's like sitting on a deck chair on a sunny day, and for the first 10 minutes, it's just, oh my God, this is lovely. and people really, really quite like the effect. And the other day I was giving a talk a few months ago, and I was treating people who were at the talk, and this woman comes up and she's clearly not comfortable. I said, "What happened to you?" And she said, "Hand grenade damage." And I hadn't come across that one before, and there was like a bit of a gasp from the audience. Anyway, she had a hand that wouldn't open, so I gave her the handhold electrode, and about 4 or 5 minutes later, she opened her hand. I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but it did for her. So where else is it good? Sinus issues, ears. Sometimes it can improve hearing. Sometimes it can turn tinnitus off, but not that often. I've had all sorts of people get the feeling back. I've had nerve damage. You haven't been able to really feel anything in their foot for 10 years. That sort of thing coming back. It's quite well known for that. Tesla called it a molecular shower, an energy shower. And he described the mechanism as in two ways. One was a cellular reset, and the other one was a cellular massage. And because it works so quickly, not in every case, but more often than not, it works very quickly. It really is as if what you're doing is you're literally recharging your body, getting all those cells back up to optimum. And so, I don't want to over-egg the pudding, because it doesn't always work, but because I put some of this information behind a paywall, you can pay £1 and sign up to the Secret Health Club Tesla section, and you'll be able to see the videos of me using it live and see what you think. I mean, my feeling is, because it's so rewarding using this, I mean, I've got little patience. I don't want to see somebody over and over again. I just want to see them once, preferably for a short time, and have them walk out the door happy. So if you wanted to change your profession and are thinking of doing something new, you might want to consider buying a properly restored device. I'm not saying they're cheap, but they're perfectly affordable generally, and they come in different price brackets depending on how big and serious the machine is. But from a perspective of healing pain, reversing pain, the least expensive devices, restored, will do the trick. The more expensive ones might be from a practitioner or somebody. You can get ones that have got 2 electrodes, or you get ones that have got 25 electrodes. So you can, and there's one for everything you can conceive of. Back in the day, let's say you were living in a village and you had an embarrassing disease down there, and you didn't want your doctor to know, because he'd probably tell everybody. Well, you could go out and buy a machine with a vaginal or a rectal electrode and quietly cure your problem yourself at home. So, back in the day, there were prostate electrodes, all sorts. One's for cellulite, one's for firming up breasts, you name it. So most of the devices that I like are 1920s, 1930s, generally pre-Second World War. And at that point, still, things were generally made to last. That's why I know which ones are worth going for, the ones that were well made back then. So these devices that are 100 years old, by 1930, they'd had 40 years developing this technology. And so, by 1920, they were really good at it, really, really good. And of course, the medical profession, or the pharmaceutical industry, or the surgeons, or the radiologists, or the people behind them, don't want you to know that there used to be simple, cheap remedies out there.
That's fascinating, Clive. Thank you so much for that. There's a couple of questions here. One is it similar to the Rife machine? And then what is the difference in technology between the Tesla machines and the Spooky machine?
Okay, so the Rife technology came later, using Tesla's technology to start with. So basically, the principle of the Tesla device is resonance. You've got one frequency, and then you've got the resonant frequencies. So you can create a whole bundle of frequencies using resonance. And so it's pretty simple. The machine creates photons of light, electrons, and so forth. And obviously the frequency you can put different noble gases in the tubes. There are noble gases under pressure, or rather in a vacuum, and different gases, when electrified, will glow with different colors, emit different colors, and the violet frequency is often the frequency that's chosen for a lot of the machines. There are other frequencies used. With Rife, it's way more specific. Rife's idea was that, look, this type of cell, let's say it's some sort of pathogen, a fungal cell or a cancer cell, or whatever it is, has got a certain frequency to it. And if we beam the equal and opposite frequency, it will just expire, right? A bit like noise cancellation. And so he spent many, many years. He developed the world's greatest microscope of that time. Nothing came close, well, nothing even today comes close to the microscopes he was developing in the 20s and 30s. Incredible, incredible machines. So you could see individual cells, you could see cells morph. So some people know, some people don't, that a fungal cell can morph into a bacteria cell and back. He was the first to film this. And so he developed this incredible radio equipment, basically, where you could be, somebody's got worms of one particular type, well, you find the frequency of that, and he spent years working at these frequencies, and you blast it and bang, it's gone. But now you've got dead worm floating about. Anyway, that's another issue. But basically he got sabotaged. Just like Tesla, the lab burns down mysteriously. Who could have done that? Could it have been the rivals? The King of England bought a Rife machine off Dr. Royal Raymond Rife. And the royal family may still have one. That may be why they're living a long time, as opposed to the adrenochrome or whatever. However, so Tesla's principle was much simpler. Now, the spooky device is a Rife machine and various other things. Now, with the spooky device and others, there are lots of Rife machines out there. The idea is you can scan the body, find out what's wrong, and then send the equal and opposite frequencies back. So the spooky device is a little more geeky than I want. With the spooky devices, you can do all sorts of things and you can adjust things. I just want something that's got a volume knob, ideally, and that's it. It's super simple. So Rife machines can be fabulous for those who understand the sort of quantum theory. You can treat people at distance. You can do a lot with the spooky range. On my website, you'll see quite a few things. I use a few more than others. I've got I quite like red lasers. Red lasers can penetrate into the body and have all sorts of effects. I've got one which I use occasionally, which is like a big wristwatch that sits on the inside of your wrist. And if you've got any bloodborne parasites, malaria would be an example of one of the worst, you can wipe out parasites using red light. You can also use the tester devices with the violet light also to wipe out parasites in the blood. Some of the old technology is incredible, including some of the materials. One of the materials that's been, if you like, rediscovered in the last few years is methylene blue. Do you know about methylene blue? Well, maybe if people are asking questions, there might be more questions. Rather, I can get on to something else. I don't know whether there are.
There aren't any more questions currently in the chat, but if anybody has any, here's one coming in. Let's have a look. I damaged the tendon from my right thumb upwards to and through the wrist and lower arm over 15 years ago. It aches and is stiff and often painful if I use thumb or wrist very much, such as typing, holding books for a while. Do these help or heal such damage, and which ones?
Okay, well, the answer is they might. Everybody's different, so you can never really predict. But underlying all that, I would say there are deficiencies. If you've got ligament, tendon sort of problems, muscle problems, I think the very first thing to consider is, are you getting enough magnesium in your diet? Now, even though I'm fairly fastidious in what I eat, organic, biodynamic, whatever it might be, I'm fully aware I'm not getting enough magnesium from my diet. And so I supplement with magnesium. And I was in so much pain 38 years ago after an antibiotic, I couldn't even get out of bed or walk or anything. And magnesium and a few other things just fixed the pain. I've never had arthritis or pain ever again. So that's number one. Then you might want to consider your diet. I mean, at one point, the FDA, the regulators in America, had heard these reports that people drinking chicken feet soup were using the word curing their arthritis and pain. And the FDA seriously considered making chicken feet soup, a medicine, because if something's a medicine, if you make a claim that it cures something, well, that's a medicine, and that needs to be regulated and licensed, and you need a prescription to have chicken feet soup. So vegans often, I had just a case just 2 days ago, lovely lady, vegetarian in her case, but she wasn't eating the materials to rebuild ligaments, and she had a ligament issue. She told me to be going on now for 8 months. Now, ligament issues should fix themselves in, 10 weeks or something. So, if you're not repairing, because we're meant to repair, maybe you're just missing some of the repair mechanisms. I mean, if you don't want to eat, chicken feet, you can get collagen. You can get powdered collagen. You can consider things like MSM sulfur. There's lots of sulfur in cruciferous vegetables, garlic, onions, ginger, eggs, or supplementing with it. That will help recycle the type of damage that you've got back into normal cells again. There are a number of materials that can possibly just ease the pain really quickly. But magnesium would be the first one. You could try rubbing in magnesium chloride. There's a spray, and you just rub it in to wherever it hurts, and just rub it in really often. Try it every half an hour, all day long. Rub it in, rub it in, rub it in. See if by the end of the day, things haven't improved. It's hard to say at a distance, but there are many things to do. Another thing is to join my secret health club. When I first got censored in 2014 by the UK government and made to take all my videos down on YouTube, I started a club called secrethealthclub.com. So all the videos that they don't want you to know about, I've got behind a private members club. You're behind a club, you've stepped out of society and you're in your own society. So it's basically an A to Z of mainly videos, but articles and audio as well. And you can look up pain, for example, and then there are loads of solutions to pain and a whole host of different subjects. And as people approach me and say, I can't find this subject, well, I'll do my best to add another one and so on. So it's a constantly growing thing. Now, we charge money to get into it because we have to run the thing. But if you haven't got any money, you can just write and say, I can only afford this much. Or if you can't afford anything at all, we'll sign you up for free.
Thank you very much, Clive. So the person who asked the question about her wrist and thumb says, yes, I take plenty of magnesium and do Epsom salt soaks and loads of other supplements. I actually slipped on a boat and ripped the thumb right back. So that's in conclusion to that one. And there is another question here. Is there any correlation between the level of nutrients in your body and the effect of energy devices on your body? For example, if you're highly toxic with metals, would that conduct the electricity more, or a lack, would that hinder the conduction?
Well, you haven't got to worry about that. Water is a fine conductor with the minerals in it, so I mean, there are many simple things to get toxins out, and we're all toxically poisoned, all of us, emotionally, when they told us we were rubbish at school, and physically by breathing and stuff like that. So I wouldn't concern myself with metal in the body. I mean, you can treat people with implants and so on because the metal is grounded to you. It's sort of effect from an electrical point of view. It is you. So implants aren't a problem. So a bit of mercury or aluminium floating around your bloodstream, I think, I don't know. I think it's too little to worry about. And for myself to detox, I use things like charcoal every now and then, very cheap. Fulvic minerals, again, incredibly inexpensive and very powerful to detoxify everything from graphene oxide to glyphosate. Fulvic minerals are incredible. Vitamin C, absolutely fantastic for detoxification. If you really want to go serious, you can use selenium. We do a liquid selenium, which is just unbelievable. I think it was in the 80s. They were doing tests in New York about how to get people off drugs, heroin, methadone. And they found that of all the methods they tested, this particular type of liquid selenium was the most effective at it. And I've had people who've, within a day, 2 days, 3 days, come off booze, no longer alcoholic, come off ADHD medication, all sorts of things people reported back to me anecdotally. So there's so many things we can do just to rectify the nutritional deficiencies. I do several things. I take vitamin K2 every day because I was victim of a psychopathic dentist or 3, and so I'm really keen to look after the teeth I've got left. And vitamin K2 is just perfect for that, and to make sure you don't get osteoarthritis. Any of the osteos, probably that person would have been low on K2. And it's particularly important if you're veggie or vegan, because while the K2 supplement that I use is actually from natto, which is a fermented soya, organic soya, usually it's only from animal products you can get K2. So perfect for vegans. I can't remember the rest of the person's question now.
Let me just go back to it. So it was about the metals in the body and the energy frequencies used in the body. That was that question. I think you've answered that.
Yeah.
We do have a question about iodine, which is about supplementation. But before we move on to that, there's another one relevant to the energy frequencies. So have you ever had a client who had a sensation like electricity running through their body 24/7? And if so, what was it? I've had this since catching COVID in 2020, and it's just got steadily worse. I have a spooky machine and also a basic Rife, but don't know what setting to use them on, and my guesswork on detox, etc., hasn't helped yet. Any ideas?
Well, I'd be interested to know if it's primarily in your hands and feet or just everywhere. Does it ever stop?
If you can type that in. I don't want to mention your name because we're recording.
I don't mind answering it. Is it easier if I talk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's everywhere throughout my whole body. It started off in my feet, and then it spread up my legs, and it's absolutely everywhere.
Can you just describe a little bit how it feels?
It feels like an electric current running through my body, or like running water. Like it feels like it's alive, it's moving the whole time. And if I put my hand on the side of like the fridge and the fridge motor, that feels quite similar to it. Or like a washing machine when it's on the spin cycle, that the spin on the spin cycle like really aggravates it. Like I can't be in the same room where you can feel that vibration.
Okay.
Very strange.
All right. Do you ever get pins and needles in your hands or your feet, or?
Yeah, if I touch my phone for too long, I get pins and needles and my hands go numb.
Okay. As a sort of aside, I had a guy who'd got this big ganglion on his hand, and he stopped using the mobile phone and the ganglion went down. Started using the mobile phone again, and he used the Tesla device, and it shrunk in half immediately in 5 minutes. So just charging yourself up with a device might, because I have no idea what's causing this, might help. But I think if it was me, I might consider going to a kinesiologist. And
testing to see what it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, on the Secret Health Club, there's a kinesiology page, and there, what they do is they take 100 remedies in a little box, and they put it on the person's chest who's lying down, and they say, is the most important remedy in this box? Yes or no? And if it's not, then they go on to the next box of 100 remedies. Is the most important one in this box? Yes or no? And then if it is, you can quickly divide that in half, and you're quickly down to, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? So I've seen kinesiology be so effective, it's unreal. So if you can find somebody who's good at it, I mean, some people are really good at doing it themselves just by putting their finger between 2 fingers on the other hand and pulling. And if they're sensitive, some people can say, if this is going to let go easily, I don't need it. It makes me weaker. If I'm still strong, then I do need. You make up in your own mind how you want to ask that question to your body. Personally, I'm hopeless at it, but other people are really good. So, other than that, so did anything else happen prior? Could there have been any trauma involved? So you think it's related to being ill, but something else, or could it be?
Yeah, well, two things happened at the same time, basically, and this might sound quite pathetic, but my dog died, and my dog was like my daughter, she was like my child. And so that for me was really traumatic. I went into shock when I found out it happened, and I was screaming apparently, because I found out in such a sudden way. And then about 10 days after that, I then got COVID really, really badly. And then after that was when I noticed this sensation. So I don't know if it was the grief and the shock that caused the sensation, or the COVID, because it all kind of happened at the same time. But
okay, well, I mean, a dog dying, and that's just, I mean, that is massive. It's massive. So, do you feel over that now?
Yeah, I do, but it's taken me about 2.5 years, because I was I've been working through it and using a lot of homeopathy, which has really helped with the grief, and it's helped with a lot of other stuff. But with this sensation, it's just nothing's touched it yet at all.
Okay, what part of the world are you?
I'm in Mallorca.
Oh, that's slightly unfortunate. I was going to say come round, but that's not going to be that easy. Let me think. Did you take any type of remedy to deal with the COVID? Could you have accidentally taken something, that is causing this? Could that be anything?
At the time, I mean, I was taking supplements, but I don't think I was taking that many, but I was taking a ton of zinc, and D3 and vitamin C.
Okay, let's just talk about zinc for a moment. Were you doing copper at the same time?
No, I wasn't. I found that out since, and I've cut the zinc. I don't take the zinc now every day. I only take zinc if I actually feel like I need it. I just went a bit paranoid during COVID and did things that I wouldn't normally have done.
There's a company called Mineral Check. They do hair mineral analysis. Obviously, the hair analysis it relates to the past, but nevertheless, you're going to get a fairly good reflection as to where you are now-ish. It may be that, something's out of balance mineral-wise. So you could do it. It's probably about 75 quid or something, I think, for a mineral hair test. That might be worth doing. So
there are a number of other suggestions coming through.
Oh, good. Read a few of those out.
Use the sway test on the body, and EFT for losing your dog. Trauma is held in the body after a traumatic event. So those are two of the suggestions that have come through. And somebody asks a question actually as well. Did the lady have the vaccine earlier?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to ask
that. No, I'm a complete, I'm a vegan, and I only eat organic, and everything's super, super clean. And I only use really good quality supplements, and mostly whole food and stuff like that. So yeah, it wasn't to do with that at all.
Mm.
So if you go onto the kinesiology page on Secret Health Club, have a look at, there's a video, Touch for Health, which is actually about removing physical blockages. But just watch that and see how easy. I mean, there's also the emotion code. I know a practitioner locally here who does Zoom calls to do the emotion code, which is just to get those emotions out, because, physical and emotional distress do get trapped in the body. I've seen it released. It's incredible.
Hope that answers your questions, Rebecca, and I hope you find some kind of way.
Thank you very much. Thanks. That's definitely stuff to get looking into. Thanks.
The other one is German New Medicine. Check out German New Medicine.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about that actually. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Again, all about trauma release.
Cool, thank you very, very much.
All right, now, if that, for some reason, some peculiar reason, that doesn't help, and you've still got it, come back to me, because there's going to be an answer. I'm happy to try and help you find it.
Brilliant, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much, Clive. We have 2 questions, and I know that they both require their own time. One is about iodine and its benefits for our health. And another one is relating to your mention of K2, which is it essential to take K2 with vitamin D3 to make the vitamin D work best?
The last question first. It's not essential, but it does seem to be required. I take vitamin K in the summer by itself. If I'm lacking sun, the winter, November, I'm going to be taking vitamin D as well. But it's important to get your vitamin D levels checked. You can just do a through the post finger prick blood test, because I had somebody not long ago who was taking a very high dose, and they ended up in hospital. So it's very rare that people can overdose on vitamin D, but it can happen. And a test is something like 20 quid online, or a doctor will do it if they deem to see you. What was the other question?
The other question was iodine and its benefits for our health.
Okay, iodine is another one that I do. 25 quid's worth would last you a year, and the benefits are extraordinary. To know whether you need iodine or not, generally speaking, the questions are, do you have a thyroid problem? That's what happens if you've lacked iodine for a long time. Do you have breast cancer? Do you have brain fog? Do you have dry skin? That sort of thing. Do you walk in a room and forget why you walked in? Iodine was the go-to remedy in the past for a GP. 150 years ago, you went to your local doctor. They didn't know what was wrong with you. They'd give you iodine. That was sort of standard, because that fixed most things. It fixed your temperature. If somebody's got going through menopause with all those menopausal symptoms, hot flushes, whatever. Well, the Japanese women don't do that because they eat so much iodine in all the seaweed for every meal that they have enough iodine. They basically don't get breast cancer much, because iodine in women, the most iodine is in the breasts, second most, like men, in the thyroid. And so if you're craving food, you're eating too much, if your temperature is all over the place, you've got cold hands and feet, you're not thinking clearly, dry skin, you may well need iodine. And the Japanese have the equivalent of 2 drops of type of iodine that I do is Lugol's iodine, which was invented almost 200 years ago by Professor Lugol. And it's anti-radiation. The army give you potassium iodide, an iodine salt in battle zones where they've got nuclear ridiculousness going on. Iodine, your blood flows through the thyroid every, 15 minutes or something like that. And if you've got enough iodine in your thyroid, then any pathogens in the blood, fungal infections, bacteria, should in theory get wiped out. But because almost all of us don't have enough iodine, because we're using fluoride toothpaste, because we're drinking water, bathing in water with fluoride in it, because of the chlorine in the water, in the food, in the Guinness, in the products made from big cities where they're fluoridated, because of the bromine that's coming off new furniture, fire retardant that they make you spray on furniture is actually a poisonous drug, as is fluoride, as is chlorine. Chlorine gas in World War I won the Poison Gas of the Year award 4 years running, and we're having showers in it, bathing in it, breathing in it, cooking in it. It's absurd. So everybody's low on iodine. Go for a swim in a swimming pool with iodine. Oh my God. It's a swimming pool with chlorine, rather. The chlorine will wipe out the iodine. People go for a swim in the chlorinated pool to get healthy. Well, I'm not sure that's happening.
There's a really interesting comment here from the person who asked the question about iodine. I had a cancer lump removed in 2003, but I have a benign lump on the other breast. And I find when I paint that breast with Lugol's iodine, the lump shrinks. If I put a drop in water to take internally, it makes my fillings taste very metallic. So I presume this isn't safe, ? You are on mute,
If
Clive.
you're tasting metal in the mouth, then simply you've got metal in the mouth, and the iodine is clearly reacting with that amalgam or whatever it is. And the amalgams are generally something like half mercury, because that's terribly easy to work with for the dentist, and terribly poisonous for us. You know, aluminium. You don't want metal in your mouth. The meridians, a lot of them end in the teeth. So quite often you can say to somebody who's got breast cancer, right, okay, let's see if you've got metal in the tooth that responds to the meridian to that breast. And I've heard, but not researched, that it's like over 95% of women can trace their breast cancer back to things like a lack of iodine, dental work, lack of selenium, lack of magnesium, lack of vitamin C. You know, there are a number of things. So it's shown now that a mammogram increases a woman's chance of breast cancer by about 1% each year. So if somebody's had 20 mammograms, you know, you can do the arithmetic. So yeah, iodine directly on the breast. You can certainly put it in topically, but if you've never done this before, be aware that maybe one person in 10,000 will have a skin reaction. Over the decades, I've had 2 people ring me from the emergency room because they got a nasty burn on their skin from iodine. Very, very rare, but don't slap it on with a paintbrush until you've tested a tiny little spot. And study the subject. You know, remember that iodine is what they paint on you before surgery. Before they cut you open, they paint iodine all over where the wound's going to be, because no bacteria can get in then. Iodine is incredible and has properties that are amazing. Again, on the Secret Health Club, I've got a whole section on iodine medicine. It's unreal what it'll do, just and quickly. I've had some people, like in just days, a week, suddenly their brains come back. They're thinking again and remembering again. I mean, you know, it can work really fast.
That's amazing, Clive. Although we do have a little comment here which says, I take nascent iodine and still forget why I went in a room.
Well, that's because she's taking nascent iodine. If you take Lugol's iodine in the right dosage, you'll come back. But bear this in mind, 150 years ago, a doctor might say, right, take 100 milligrams of iodine twice a day. Now, doctors say, take 70 micrograms. So it's more than 1,000 times less. So what doctors feel is the right dose, and many health experts just have read that and don't know what they did in the past. So, you know, so they reckon whatever 700 micrograms is what people need. But the Japanese were taking 12.5 milligrams, which is, you know, I don't know, I can't do the maths, 14,000 times more. And so a lot of people think they're taking enough iodine, but they're not, or they're taking nascent iodine, which while in circuit, for low doses, that may be great. But if you want to do something therapeutic, you know, Dr. Brownstein, who wrote the book Iodine, Why You Need It, Why You Can't Live Without It, recommends 50 milligrams 5 days a week, along with selenium. I mean, it's really worth looking into these subjects. And as I say, the Secret Health Club is one way to do it, to get just straight to, here's the information I need to know to get it right, to feel confident, because your own confidence in what you're doing, I would suggest, could be, I don't know, 50% of the healing, maybe. Yeah, the power of the mind is so powerful.
That's brilliant, Clive. Thank you very much. I'm just typing in. So it's Lugol's iodine to, in answer to what iodine type.
Yeah, and then there are different strengths. So in America, most you can get is 5%, but in England, the one I do is about 12%. So you know, again, it's just the little fine details that can make all the difference between total success and not much.
Perfect, Clive. The next question is, any suggestions to help with persistent cellulite? I'm doing rebounding, fascia massage, yoga, dry skin brushing, taking Irish moss and bladderwrack, but nothing has helped so far. Thank you.
Well, it's not a cheap way to do it, but there are cellulite electrodes for the Tesla device where you sort of have a little vacuum. And I don't know whether it works because I've never used it. So I don't know. But it's a reasonably common electrode that you get in the sets. So that would be one way. Otherwise, I'd be looking at vitamin C. I suggest to anybody, there are two websites that are free that are worth looking at. One is earthclinic.com, and excuse me, greenmedinfo.com. And very useful, very, very useful site. The other things for the cellulite, and I don't know enough about cellulite to be the font of all knowledge on it, but it might be worth looking at MSM sulfur as another possibility. I'd have to do some research to be able to answer that. Just, I just don't know enough about cellulite, I realise.
Perfect. I've just popped that in the chat. In the absence of any current questions, I'd like to take you back to methylene blue, which you mentioned, Clive, earlier on.
Yeah. So this was invented as a blue dye, and it was used to dye fabrics blue. And blue, used to be a very rare color to dye, so blue dye was very valuable. So a few years later, they started using it for microscopy. If you got a live sample of something or other, they found they liked staining things, so you could see different parts would take the stain. Anyway, they noticed with methylene blue that it killed everything they tried to stain immediately, wiped it out. And they used methylene blue in fish tanks, in aquariums, because it just stops fungal infections with fish. But in about 1896, I think it was a Professor Ehrlich, realized that it could be used on humans to incredible effect. It's an antifungal. Let me just, this book's worth reading if anybody wants to know, The Ultimate Guide to Methylene Blue. And it says here, remarkable hope for depression, AIDS, COVID, viruses, Alzheimer's, autism, cancer, heart disease, cognitive enhancement, pain, and much more. Now, whatever your feeling as to whether viruses are really what they say they are or not, methylene blue has become a bit of a worldwide phenomena recently. And you just add it to water. It looks pretty weird drinking blue water, but a lot of people are getting a result in a day. Some, often with their cognitive function, suddenly they're thinking clearer. It can be very quick. It's an incredible material, and I've got a date to interview the Mark Sloan, the author of the book, but I really recommend buying the book. It's one of the top books I would suggest that's worth spending whatever it is, £6 on. And it's worth considering trying, again, like everything, research it. But people start usually with 10 drops once a day, then 10 drops twice a day, and then they might build up to 60 drops. Everybody's different. You don't want to take too much. Like many things, there's like a U-shaped curve. It works better and better and better. And then if you take too much, let's say more than 60 drops, you might find that it works less and less well, or could even be detrimental. So with most of these things, there are videos on the Secret Health Club about most of the products, where I explain, what's the best way to use it, how to work out how much you're likely to need. Luckily, with quite a few products like vitamin C or magnesium, the body's self-regulating. You take too much, you're in the bathroom with diarrhea, and the body's saying, no, thank you. So if that happens, sometimes that could be a good thing. years and years ago, I had this lovely 28-year-old lady come to see me, and she got some bowel issues, constipation. I suggested at that point lots of water, psyllium husks, and some bentonite clay. She rings me up in the morning, ever so happy. She says, "You never guess, a small piece of yellow Lego came out." And she said, "Well, I must have swallowed that, I don't remember, 25 years ago." And it had been stuck in her bowel, a piece of little yellow Lego, for 25 years. So, the question is, we may be having a bowel movement every day, but how old are we backed up 2 days, 3 days, 10 days? A lot of people with bowel issues, you could safely say it was constipation that caused all those terrible issues. And a lot of people are constipated, but they don't know it. They're going regularly, but it's rotting for days before it comes out. Sorry to mention such things, but it's
always good.
Overlooked,
Yeah, it's always good to know, Clive. There's a couple more questions here. Are these supplements like iodine and magnesium safe if you're breastfeeding, or should I wait until I'm finished breastfeeding? Also, in addition to that, also the health visitor told me to supplement my baby with vitamin D drops because I'm breastfeeding, but I feel uncomfortable about it.
Okay. I wouldn't take health advice from a doctor generally, because how long has that lady who gave the advice studied vitamin D? I would suggest never. She's probably been told this is what you do. I would feel if I was going to give something to my baby, I'd want to research it. But it is very important during pregnancy and breastfeeding to be aware as to what supplements you're taking. You can overdose on iodine, and the baby can be born overdosed on iodine. You do not want to take chances with babies. And iodine is very powerful, which is a good thing. If you think about some of these materials, we're mainly made of water. So sodium, you take a lump of pure sodium, the metal, throw it into water, it explodes in flames. Potassium, water, explodes in flames. Magnesium, set fire to it, bright light. We're dealing with incredibly powerful materials when we're talking about minerals. It's amazing, really. Why don't we burst into flames when we have a lot of salt, all that sodium? But luckily we don't. So, particularly when it comes to babies, it's really worth researching. But if you want to research about babies, have a look at the babies page on the Secret Health Club, where it shows you how to hold a baby so it won't cry, how to hear what your baby says on the first day it's born, because your baby comes with sounds, not what we would recognize as language, but once you learn the sounds, you can hear that your baby's saying, "I'm hungry now, I've got wind now, I'm having a poo now, I'm tired now, I'm hungry now." There are these subtle sounds, and there's a video that shows you how to recognize the sounds. There's one which enables you to teach your child. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You'll see videos of children who've been taught how to see blindfolded. They can see zero, but they can play ball, they can write, they can paint, they can tell you everything. They can describe the colors of the flowers, because there's another method that excludes the ears, another way of hearing that children can learn if they're young enough. Up past 11, they can't teach it. So there are a bundle of super, I think, important videos that really everybody, they should have taught us all this stuff at school. All of it they should have taught at school. Did you know your baby has language when it's born? It can communicate with you. And the problem is, if parents don't realize there's this language going on, they don't communicate with the baby, it stops communicating until it sort of learns to talk, and it just cries like hell instead. But the babies who have been heard hardly cry, because why would they? They don't really need to, because their parent, "Oh, you're hungry, you're thirsty, come on then, let's do it." I mean, how can such information have been lost? I think intuitively our ancestors knew all that stuff, somehow it's been lost. The idea of going to hospital, having your legs up in the air to give birth on a bunch of drugs is ludicrous to me. Home birth, my fourth child was born in about 25 minutes at home in a water birth. And because mum had magnesium and vitamin C or whatever it was to enable an easy birth, there's much less tearing if you've got vitamin C when you give birth, much less pain if you've got magnesium. It's just, there's so much information that really everybody needs to know. Even if you're a granny, well, for your grandchildren's sake and theirs, this information is super important. And once you know it, it's not like complicated. You can tell other people.